where we are getting the lift in personal income is because as employment has recovered, wages are now starting to come along with it. In large respects, this is the total wage bill, so that's both jobs and normal wage growth, the product of the two. This is how much U.S. wages and salaries are raised in billions of dollars. What was flat is no longer flat. We're getting big now. And the distinction I used to like to make, economists speak of recovery at such point as things are no longer falling, they started up. Most people think of recovery of when do we get back to where it was? And in some respects, a much more sensible definition. We actually achieved it last quarter. So in terms of all the real economic output that we lost coming out of the recession, we have now recovered it, and that was last quarter. So from now on, it's all uphill. Having said that, why does the recovery seem so much worse? Right, number one, we are starting off a very low point. So things were really bad. So compared to really bad, recovery from really bad means not so bad. In comparison, that's really good. Number two is time erodes memory. People forget what it was like 30 years ago. Number three is there is a painful adjustment to normal. We went from the unsustainable to normal, and that process sometimes can be a little uncomfortable. And the fourth of which is low inflation has actually revealed adjustments that other recessions with higher inflation had them hidden. From a real low starting point. Yes, it's all well and good to say we've now recovered to where we were in 2007, but basically that means we had a 3-year hangover, and we didn't get back to where we were because we lost 3 years worth of growth through the recession, and it took us almost another 2 years to get it back. Production. Yes, it's all well and good to say, as I was saying, that industrial production is growing at 12%. It's faster than it was in the last two recoveries. Well, that's great, but we lost 15% to start with. And next, retail sales. If you want to really, to me, if you want to see the impact of how sharp the economic contraction was, this is it. You had retail sales over the course of a very slight period of 4 months, lost 4 years worth of growth in a heartbeat, for all intent and purpose. I think we've now come back. I have to go. And of course, the one that everybody talks about, the job losses in this past recession were larger than the last 3 recessions put together. So in terms of magnitude that you have to recover from, that is the biggest job losses in post-war history. And this is sort of one of, as I'll develop the thing later, coming from a low starting point, housing construction is down over 75%. And really, even though I sort of plotted like June 10th, the last one of that, it really hasn't come back. Literally 5 minutes before I came over here, I got curious and I asked myself, when was the last time housing starts in the construction business was as weak as it was? And the United States Census Bureau does the nice long study in where our housing starts. And I was totally shocked to see the series starts January 1st, 1960. The lowest level in that entire now 51-year series is February 2011. Of course, when we have both a housing price collapse and we have a stock market collapse, the other thing that happened is household net worth took a pounding. Over a very short period, like 6 months, it fell over $17 trillion. Now, we go to the theme of time erodes memory. We left this theme of it was a very far drop. We're now going to, we really don't understand context, and time erodes memory. As bad as the unemployment rate was, and it hit 10.1% as a peak, it wasn't the overall peak. This was the peak back in 1981-82. At that point, unemployment was in fact higher than we've experienced this time at 10.8%. For Wisconsin, Our record high in terms of employment, this is months after the recession again. We peaked at after the start of the recession in this case, 9.2. That compares to 20 years, 30 years earlier when it was almost 2.5 points higher at 11.4%. We never hit double-digit unemployment here, although we did in the early 80s.